Hello FlossTube, my name is Leann and I am leann.stitches here on YouTube and on Instagram. Today is Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Happy New Year. And today I am going to do my annual WIP parade. If you are new to the cross stitch world, a WIP is a work in progress, and once a year we like to get all of our projects out from all the corners. We have them hidden and iron them up to make them look pretty and show them off. So that's what I'm here to do today. Normally I do my WIP parade on January 1st, but it kind of threw me off this year because January 1st was a Sunday. So instead of getting up and getting all my projects out and ironing them and everything, we got up and went to church. And then we came home and did the Sunday afternoon nap, and we went to friend's house. And so I just didn't have time. So since New Year's Eve was on a Sunday, or New Year's Day was on a Sunday, I get Monday off, and here we are. Okay, I think I'm just gonna get right to it because I have a lot more projects than I anticipated. I don't know how that happened, but if you're a cross stitcher, you know exactly how that happens. So let's just get right into it. The first project I have to show you, as always, if you are familiar with my channel, is Marvel Heroes. This has been a focus piece for me for the last 2 years, although last year I called it a focus piece, but it was not. This is a gift for my husband. It is officially my oldest WIP, and I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that I will finish it this year because I'm not even halfway done, but I am going to try to make some good progress on it. Here it is. So I only did 4,174 stitches on this year compared to over 20,000 in the previous 2 years. So there's not a ton of progress. It was just a weird stitching year for me. I don't really know what happened, to be honest. Lots of work, lots of lack of motivation and things like that. But the one good thing about that piece, I have a love-hate relationship with it, I will always say, is that it's not pattern keeper compatible. And so before New Year's Eve, when I worked on it for part of my 12 by 12, I was finally able to get the entire document loaded into Pattern Keeper. So even though the symbols can't be read to show me and help me follow along that way, at least I can work on more than one page at a time, and I don't have to keep reformatting the pages and loading them in. So I'm really hopeful about that piece for 2023. And like I said, I've been trying to finish it for the last 2 years, or 3 years really. I've been working on it for 3 years now. And I have made the commitment to my husband that by his 45th birthday, it will be done, or 45th Christmas year, which gives me an extra 6 months or so to work on it, which would be 2024 finish. So fingers crossed. The next piece I have to show you, and these are gonna be mostly in chronological order, is Addams Family Sal by Just Stitch Design. And this was a Sal, again, if you're new, Sal means stitch along, in 2020, and this was the first project that I started for my very first Mania in 2020, and I don't have a picture of the entire piece. I never found one that represents the entire Sal altogether, so this is what I've got, but basically it's the entire house of the Addams family and everybody's bedrooms and the garage. Like, there's a really cool car that goes down here. So I don't think I worked on this piece at all this year, to be honest. So if I don't give you a side-by-side comparison, that is why. This is a really big piece. So let's see what I can show you here. And there it is. I was trying to focus on that bottom floor, which is technically the second floor if you don't count the basement. But like I said, I really just don't think I even picked this up this year. I'll watch back my WIP parade from last year and see, and if it did, I will put a progress picture in there so you can see that. I started that on, like I said, it was my first Mania start, so that was May 1st, 2020. Marvel Heroes I started on February 26th, 2020. Addams Family Sal is on a 28 count cashel linen. I honestly don't know what it is. I know I got it from 123 Stitch. It's probably Picture This Plus, but I really don't know. Marvel Heroes is on 16 count Easy Grid Ada, using all the called for DMC. I'm really bad at telling what my fabric and floss is, so I will try to do it. And if I forget, I am also really bad at putting things in the description box. But those are my 2 goals for 2023 for this channel, is to remember to say my floss and fabric and to remember to fill the description box. On that note, the next piece I have to show you is Tiny Modernist Words to Live By series. This I started on May 5th, 2020, and I keep saying that I really want to finish this, but then I just, for some reason, I never want to pick it up. And then the second I do pick it up, I'm like, why don't I pick this up more often? So I don't know. I don't really want to get into 2023 plans all that much here, but I am doing WIP Warriors, which is a group on Facebook, and I chose the 23 in 23 option, which means I chose 23 of my WIPs to focus on. In reality, I have 21, and that gives me room for 2 new starts. And then as I finish things, I can start something new or pull something from the WIP pile. So I think if I finish something, I might pull this from the WIP pile. But there it is. Like I said, I never want to pull this piece out to work on it. I don't know why. And then every time I do pull it out, I just love it. The colors are beautiful. I'm stitching this on a 32 count even weave that I dyed in 2020 when I was learning how to hand dye fabrics. So you can see there's a lot of weird modeling and color things, but I like it for this piece because I think that the color, the white pops and all the colors pop. Other than that, purple right there, but I like it. Anyway, there's that. I don't think I worked on this at all in 2022. There are gonna be a lot of pieces like that, unfortunately. The next piece is Castles in the Air by Long Dog Sampler. I started this on May 26th, 2020. This was another Mania start that year. And I worked on this just a tiny bit. This was a piece I was actually toying with UFOing because I really don't, it's not a pleasant stitching experience on the fabric. And I decided to give it one more shot this year. So I just worked in this corner right here. This is a 32 count Belfast Opalescent that I dyed again in 2020 when I was learning to dye fabric. And it's a really dark color, which makes it hard to stitch on. And then the opalescent also, you know, the 2 combined make it really difficult. I'm using DMC 3865. So this year I decided that I was gonna pull it out one more time. And I did it during, I did kind of a modified arbitrary August. So when this came up on my decision wheel, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm gonna see if using my Lowry stand and the new way I stitch, because of the stand, I'm gonna see if I still enjoy it, and if not, I'm gonna UFO it. And I did. I really liked it a lot better on the Lowry stand, and I still think it's gonna be a piece that I don't pull out. It's not the first piece I wanna pull out, but I think that I really do love the way it looks, and so eventually I will finish it. Again, it's not in my 23 and 23 options yet, but anything could change this year. The next piece is Heaven and Earth Designs. It is Wizard of Oz by Scott Gustafson. I started this on May 28th, 2020, and this is another one that I really didn't pull out much this year. I really didn't work on my full coverage this year all that much, to be honest. I don't know why, I just wasn't in the mood. I was in the mood for smaller projects. So that's what I did the most of. I only stitched 443 stitches on this. And here it is. One of the things about this pattern that doesn't have me reaching for it is that it's much darker in the floss than it is on the artwork, and that was kind of a bummer for me. And I think I've kind of gotten over that disappointment as I've learned more about cross stitch. But the other thing that keeps me from working on it a lot is that it is 22 count, 2/1 full cross, and so it does get a little tight in there. But I really love it. I love the rainbow, and so I really want to keep working that way and get to that sky and rainbow and get to the characters from the Wizard of Oz, because I really do love the artwork. This is not a piece in my 23 and 23 project plan. I don't plan to fill it in. I chose a couple of other full coverage projects to focus on this year. So I don't imagine I will get any progress on that this year, but you never know. We'll see how it goes. I'm probably gonna say that a lot this hour or so that I'm filming. The next piece I have is Sea Glass, and this is by Carolyn Manning. And I started this on June 6th, 2020 as part of the Manic Manning Sal. I don't know the exact hashtag, but it's something like that. Most people have finished their projects by now, and I love working on it, but again, it's just not one that I pull out very often, and I don't know why. But here it is. I love the teals. And my entire house is decorated in teals and turquoise and grays, so it's like the perfect thing. I imagined making a pillow out of it to put in an armchair somewhere. I worked 1,000 stitches on this year, so I did pull it out and work on it a couple of times, but not a lot. Again, just didn't work on the full coverage that much. The next piece I have to show you is Ever After by Daniel Kordick at Tilton Crafts. Sea Glass, I forgot the name already. Sea Glass is on a 14 count Silver Moon Ada, and it's just using the called for DMC. Okay, Ever After by artwork by Daniel Kordick, charted by Tilton Crafts. I'm stitching this on a 16 count Ada using the called for DMC, and once again, I did not touch this year. So I don't even think I'll put a progress picture up to compare because it's not really worth it. I love this artwork. I love Ever After. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just, again, I didn't work on full coverage. I do not have this slated to work on this year, so it's just gonna sit there for a little while I focus on other things. And the next project I have is Once Upon a Fairy Tale by Heaven and Earth Designs. The artwork is by Amy Stewart, and I started this July 31st, 2020. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, my spreadsheet is totally wrong on this. I did not record the stitches that I stitched on it last year, so I really have no idea how many I stitched on it this year. I know it's a little bit, so I'll put up the progress picture, or the picture from last year to show the progress. I didn't work on it a lot, but I did work on it some at least. There I go, showing my picture. At least it wasn't upside down this time, it was just sideways. I started in the top right-hand corner, and I'm wishing I had started this one in the center because it's max colors, so there's over 230 colors in it, so there's a lot of confetti, and I kind of just wish I had started with something with more detail, so it'd be a little more fun to work on. This stone work with all the grays, as much as I love gray, it's just not super inspiring to work on. So my plan is to finish this area and kind of work this way and then down so I can get to that part of the castle. Yeah, with the dragon and all the interesting things. So this is in my 23 and 23 projects. So it is one of my full coverage focuses this year. I don't know how much I'll get it done. I'm still working out what I really want to do for my 2023 schedule as far as a stitching rotation and how I want to focus on things to finish. But that is one of the 3 or 4, maybe even only 2 or 3 full coverage pieces that I put in there. So I'm hoping to get a bunch of work on it. Quaker Pumpkins, Hello from Liz Mathews. This was one of my New Year's Eve 12 by 12 projects. I had really wanted to finish this in the fall of 2022, but I got, work got really intense. I was doing some model stitching and it just got put to the side. So I did work on it in 2022 though, so I know there is some progress and I'm really close to a finish. There it is. All I have left is this pumpkin over here, and that's what I worked on for New Year's Eve. That might be best for a comparison. And then, so I have that pumpkin and then a couple more of these stars, snowflake thingies in the top, and then I have to finish the border and the words at the bottom. And I said this in my New Year's Eve video that I posted a couple days ago, but I'm toying with the idea of, instead of All Hallows Eve, Georgia Girl Stitching charted it to say Harvest Blessing or Autumn Harvest or something like that. And I'm thinking about changing it to say that instead, just so I can keep it up in my house a little bit longer than just for Halloween. But I haven't decided yet. I'm stitching that on a 32 count even weave of some sort. I, again, dyed it myself. when I was learning to dye, and it is basically the first rendition of what is now spearmint in my shop. And I'm using my Forbidden Fiber Co. conversion for the fancy flosses. The next piece I have to show you is, what's this called? I think I have it as All Hallows Eve. Is that what it's called? All Hallows Eve Sampler by Joan Elliott Design. And I started this on September 5th, 2020. So it was a birthday start. I did, I think I did 5 or 6 or 7 birthday starts that year. It was my 40th birthday and I was supposed to get to go to Europe, and it was 2020. So we all know what happened. So I bleached my hair blonde and dyed it fun colors, and started a bunch of cross stitch projects instead. There's where I'm at. Again, I don't think I worked on this year at all. I was planning to pull it out during Halloween, during the month of October, and do some spooky stitching or dark stitching, and just never made it. I didn't make it to the spooky stitching in October. Okay, the next project I have is Halloween at Hawthorne Hollow, and I am stitching this with Bobby from Pumpkin Creek Primitives, whose name I can never ever say, Sarah from FSRE, and Sammy Liz, which is Sam. And I started this on September 6th, 2020. I am having a hard time with my numbers and dates and putting things together today. September 6th, 2020, another one of my birthday starts. And then they started it in 2021, and I jumped into their SAL with them. And so this was not a piece that I planned to focus on in 2022 at all. 2020, I don't even remember anymore. It was not a piece I planned to focus on, and I ended up doing it. I ended up stitching almost a block a month for the beginning of the year. And then I kind of fell off towards the end of the year as things got busy, but I got a lot of progress on it this year, and so I'm really excited. I'm probably going to have to do the before picture either in that corner where there's no stitching, or before I show this. So I don't know if I can do a side-by-side comparison, but that's where I'm at. This was another one of my New Year's Eve 12x12 WIPs that I worked on. And honestly, this is just a really fun stitch. It is a lot of stitching. Each one of those blocks has a lot of stitches in it. I mean, this one over here is basically full coverage. Just this little row at the top is the only part that doesn't have any stitching. But it's just, I don't know, I can't really describe it. It's fun stitching. So if you have been on the fence about a Hawthorne Hollow piece, do it. You won't regret it, I promise. This is a 28 count cast shell, which is why it's so big, because I'm stitching 2/2, and it's charted in silk, and I did the DMC conversion that is given. Next piece I have to show you is And a Forest Grew by Rosewood Manor, and I did not stitch on this at all in 2022. I started it September 7th, 2020, another one of those birthday starts. And I decided this year that I was going to focus on Consider the Lilies, having 2 huge samplers that were essentially trees and flowers and stuff. I really was always trying to figure out which one I wanted to work on, so I decided to focus on Consider the Lilies. And as I was ironing this for the WIP parade, I don't want to say I regretted that decision, but I'm kind of sad that I didn't work on it. I slated Consider the Lilies in for my 23 and 23 again, because I really want to finish one of these 2. And now I'm kind of sad because I was looking at it and remembered all the things I love about it. But alas, I did not work on it in 2022, and I most likely will not work on it in 2023 either. But that, I'm hoping I remember that, so I will make sure to schedule it in for some 2024 stitching, depending on how this year goes. The next piece, speaking of Consider the Lilies, is here. This is by Heartstring Samplery. I started this on September 10th, 2020, and I started it with Alma from Alma's Little Wonders, and I kind of took off with it. I don't think she's worked on it much, but you know, that's the way a start along goes, is you both started at the same time and you finish it whenever you finish it, especially with something this big. This is 435 by 363. I have it on an entire yard of fabric. And a Forest Grew is on 28 count cashel. It's undyed, it's just white. This is also on 28 count cashel. Let's see. And I got a lot done on this. Can it even fit in the screen? There it is. I might even be able to do a side-by-side with that. My plan for 2022 was to go across the middle page by page and hit the other side and then go back up and around and connect the border at the top. And I did pretty good through April or so. And then that's really when I lost my stitchy bug. And I also got distracted by that tree in the middle, and I decided to work up a page so I could finish the tree before I kept going across. And so that's where I'm at right now, as I'm finishing the tree. This is another NYE 12x12 WIP that I worked on. So I'm working on finishing the tree, and then I'm gonna keep going across and continue my original plan. It is one of my 23 and 23 pieces. As I said earlier, I don't have a specific goal for it. I'm not gonna try to say I'm gonna complete a page a month, but I am going to stitch on this on Sundays again. I did that last year and I really enjoyed it. And if I stitched on it every Sunday of the month, I was able to complete a full page. Plus, like, I didn't stop at the page line. If I was in the middle of a motif, I either decided, well, there's more of this motif on the next page, so I'll stitch it with that page, or I went to the next page and finished it. So it's a little more or less than a page a month that way. But if I can keep stitching it on Sundays, then we'll see how much I can get done this year. I really do love stitching on it. That is a 28 count cashel. I dyed it custom for this project. So yeah. The next piece I have is Reader's Paradise by artwork by Amy Stewart, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And I started this on September 12th, 2020. And I was very surprised to realize, as I was going through Pattern Keeper to track my progress for the year, I was very surprised to see that I did not stitch on this year. I don't know how that happened. I love stitching on this. So it is in my 23 and 23 album, I don't know what you call it, my project list. So this will see some stitching this year. I don't know how much, but I really want to, especially now after realizing I didn't work on it at all, I really want to work on that some. So the next piece, oh, that is on a 25 count easy grid Lugana using Called for DMC. Mini TN Books, also by Heaven and Earth Designs. The artwork is by Bridget Ashwood. And I started this on September 16th, 2020, and I only worked 300 stitches on this. And I also have a big old soda stain in the middle, and I'm unsure whether I should go ahead and soak it now or just stitch over it and soak it later, because the color I'm stitching is basically the color of soda. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm really just working on the background. I probably worked in here some, is where I probably put my stitches this year. But there it is. I love working on this one, but I'm kind of tempted. I've been really sticking to the background, and I thought for a while I would go all the way around and then come into the middle. But now I'm rethinking that. I kind of want to stitch on those books, some or at least the teacup or something colorful, because I'm not really a brown person. And if I had to do it over again, I would probably stitch that on a hand-dyed fabric and do the no background version, but I'm already 7,000 stitches in or so, and I'm not really in the mood to redo it. That is on a probably 18 count Ada. The next piece I have is one that I charted myself from some artwork I found online. It is called Dark Voyager. He is a character from Fortnite, and I'm stitching this for my son. I did not work on this at all last year. I'm kind of wondering if I should UFO it. He really doesn't play Fortnite anymore. I did tell him about it. I was stitching it as a surprise to him, but I did tell him about it, and he still wants it, even though he doesn't play Fortnite anymore. And you know how kids are, they always cycle back through things, so we'll see. But I don't have this in my 23 for 23 or 23 in 23, so I'm not really sure. I don't love this strip of brown right there. It looks better when it's farther away, but when I'm staring at it close up, it bothers me. But when I charted it, I kind of just trusted the charting software. Anyway, I really want to get over to some of this color but I'm like way up here. I think I'm just now getting into this baton or whatever that is. So it's not in my 23 and 23, so I'm probably not going to work on it this year. Although one of the things I wanted to do is, as I finish thing, I wanted to put the pieces for my kids in there so I could work on them throughout the year. So it might go back into the rotation. I have to start feeling it again, if that makes sense. I started that on October 19th, 2020, and it is on, I think that's a 16 count, but it might be an 18 count Ada. The next piece is Mini Realm of Enchantment, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. The artwork is by Ann Stokes, and this piece is for my daughter Noelle. She wanted something with a fairy and a unicorn, and so here it is. I do not think I stitched on this year. Sadly, I really love stitching on this one. It's a lot of fun. I started in the bottom right corner. I think this was the first project I started in the bottom right corner. I don't love it, but I do love that I got to her leg and her wings. Like those are her fairy wings, and this is the swoop of her dress. So I do love that. And I might, when I get this slotted into my 23 and 23, I might continue to go up that way and get the fairy and the unicorn done, because I think Noelle would really like to see that done. The next piece I have is Mini Shoot the Moon, charted by Heaven and Earth Design. It's artwork by Leann Seed. And this was also for Noelle. I think she'd still like it if I finished it. I really enjoy stitching on this piece. I just didn't this year. I decided to stitch this one Extreme Cost Country, which means one color through the whole page, through the whole piece. And I decided to start with black because there is so much black, and then I thought it would be fun to go fill in the other colors. And like I said, I really enjoy stitching on this. I just didn't in 2022. The next piece I have is Anna and Elsa from Frozen, and this is for my youngest daughter, Genevieve. And again, another piece I didn't pick up in 2023. 2022. I just really didn't do any full coverage. I would really like to get this piece finished sooner rather than later. I already stitched her the Beauty and the Beast by the same designer, which is Aurora CS on Etsy. I already stitched that. It's framed, it's hanging in her room. This was a companion piece. And then she also asked me to do Moana, but this was, you know, when she was 4, and she's 6 now, and she still likes Frozen and all that, but we just put away all of her Barbies and everything so that she could have a desk in her room. So I don't know. I might honestly be finishing this piece more for me than for her, and it'll probably get hung in her room, but it might not be something that she takes with her when she's grown. And I'm okay with that. So that's where I'm at. Again, I don't think I stitched on this at all this year. I really only have about 1,600 stitches into it total. I started, when I was stitching Beauty and the Beast, I was chatting with someone in one of the full coverage groups, I think on Facebook, Full Coverage Fanatics, and she was stitching a lot of the pieces by the same designer, and she would stitch the black first and then fill in, and she said she loved it because it was like a coloring book. And I was doing the opposite, where I was stitching the stained glass first and then going back and filling in the black, and I liked it because it meant I didn't have to think. I could just stitch black, and I just did it page by page. And so I thought I would try it her way this time, and I really didn't enjoy it. So I went back and started filling in the colors. And so that's why you see a little bit of randomness happening there. Again, I'd like to slot that into my 23 and 23 when I finish some things and work on it a little bit this year. I started that on November 15th, 2020, which was New Start November for those of us who attempted no new starts in 2021, and I made it through about my birthday, but I got out due to model stitching. So as you'll see when I get into it, I started quite a few things after I got out. Not a ton, but a few. Anyway, that is on that's on 16 count Ada because I wanted it to match the Beauty and the Beast piece. The next one I have is Joyeux Noël. I started this on November 23rd, 2020. And this is by Floss. It's a free pattern on their website. And I started it with some other stitchers. I used to belong to the I can't remember the name of the group, but they have a Zoom chat and they all get together almost every night. Well, you know, as you can, the Zoom chat is open all the time. And so people are on there all the time. I just found that I tend not to have any time to Zoom while I stitch because it's usually at the end of the night and, you know, my husband and I are watching TV. And so I ended up leaving the group because I didn't want to ruin the integrity of the group of it being a group for people who got together and Zoom chatted. But they did a conversion to DMC from Floss, and I started this with them. There was a hashtag, but I don't remember what it is. I worked on it just a little bit. I think I worked on it on Christmas Day this year, and I worked on it just a tiny bit. I got this tree in, and I think I did some of this yellow and some of these gray snowflakes, and that's really it. I didn't count how many stitches I did, but it was just a couple hundred. I'm stitching this on a 32 count Belfast opalescent linen, undyed. And then, like I said, I'm using the DMC conversion. The only thing I did is that I changed out this red. They had like 347 or 349 or something that was a much orangier red. And I liked this, I think it's 921 instead. So there's that. The next piece I have is Santa's Workshop. It is a Thomas Kincaid piece, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And my funny story about this is I also have a 2,000 piece puzzle using the same artwork. And normally I am really good at puzzles, but this puzzle was hard. And I would sit down for an hour and maybe get 2 or 3 pieces. And normally I can sit down for an hour and get a couple hundred pieces. So when I saw that Heaven and Earth Designs had it charted, I said I was going to stitch it instead of do the puzzle, because even if it took me 5 or 10 years to finish it, it would still be faster than I could get that puzzle done. And now that I know a little more about stitching, it's probably gonna take me closer to like 20 years to get this done at the rate I'm going, but I don't know. And this is another one where I started in the upper right-hand corner, but there's really nothing going on. And so I kind of want to stitch down to Santa and maybe work on Santa a little bit. I started this, if I didn't already say, November 25th, 2020, and I got about 1,200 stitches in on it this year. The next piece is God Shed His Grace by the Cross Stitch Studio. I started this on November 28th, 2020, and this was another one that I meant to be a focus piece, and I just never quite focus on it. I really want to hang this in my living room when it's done, but it is 869 wide by 583 high for a total of 506,627 stitches. It is my biggest full coverage piece, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know when I'll get it finished, especially with how I'm trying to focus on Marvel Heroes and get that done. And so maybe I'll focus on this one after I get that one done finally. I only worked on this a couple of days. I got 1,400 stitches in on it. One of the stumbling blocks for me on this is, number one, the size, because it's on 18 count, so it is massive, but the wall I want to put it on in my living room is also massive, so it works. But it's just a lot of dark. And so I finally decided to go up and do some of the lighter colors, and that's what I tried to focus on this year, just to make it a little more interesting. So there's that one. And then the next piece I have is Mini Capel Star Trail. And I started this on November 29th, 2020, and I have not worked on it since that day. So here it is. Right there, just a little bit of $37.99, 18 count Aida again. I don't want to UFO it because I really like the artwork and someday I would like to finish it. I'm not planning to work on this one at all this year. It's just kind of sitting. I don't even have it in my regular WIP basket. It's kind of off to the side in a cupboard just so I can have the ones that I am working on at the ready. So yeah, this one is Summer Breeze, the crop version of it. And when I bought this, I thought crop meant that it would be smaller, but all it meant was that it took the artwork, it cropped it and blew it up. So this one is 517 by 517 for a total of 267,289 stitches. I started it on December 15th, 2020, and I worked on it that one day. I worked on it one day in 2021 and no days last year. And I know exactly where I want to hang this, upstairs, but I don't know. Again, I want to finish it. I don't want to UFO it. I just haven't worked on it. It just kind of sits with mini Capel Star Trails. If I didn't say it's by the Cross Stitch Studio, I said when I started it, that's really all there is to say. 18 count Ada. The next piece is a Dimensions Gold ornament. I could just call it House with Santa because that's what it is. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a house with Santa Claus on it. This is the 6th and final ornament in my Dimensions Gold kit that I bought, which was the first thing I bought when I decided to get back into cross stitching in December of 2019. I started it December 25th, 2020, and then I restarted it this year because I messed up. I had it all gridded and I started in the wrong place on the grid, so the grid didn't line up to the pattern, and then rather than rip out 200 stitches, I just decided to start it over. The other reason why I decided to start it over was because the dimensions really did not give enough fabric to finish those pieces, and I was constantly fighting with a Q-snap and a hoop, trying to get the little piece of fabric that I had cut to finish them into a hoop or a Q-snap so I could work on it. And again, if I had known then what I know now, I probably never would have used their fabric. I would have just gotten another piece of 18 count Ada and cut it to the correct size. So that is what I did here. I said it's my last one. I'm not going to struggle through it. So yeah, I only put a couple hundred stitches in one night when I restarted it. I do not have this slated for my 23 and 23, but I kind of want to finish it this year. I really, you know, it's been a goal every single year to get them onto my tree, and I haven't even started to FFO them because they're not all done, and I don't want to do that process more than once. So I would like to get it slated in there when I get a finish and finish it. The next piece I have is Nevermore by Lila Studio, and I didn't get the chart out to show you the picture, so I'll put a picture up in the corner. And I do not believe I worked on this at all this year. This is on a 32 count Morning Mist dyed by Forbidden Fiber Co. And I'm using the Forbidden Fiber Co. conversion that both are available in the shop. We even have some patterns if you want to buy the full kit. Bridget at the Museum Stitcher is also stitching on this, and she's using the fabric. I don't know if she's using the floss conversion, but she made the comment that it is very dense stitching, and you stitch and stitch and stitch on it and don't really feel like you're getting anything done. And so she's thinking of taking it out and or gifting it or whatever, and just basically stopping working on it. And I'm not there, but I definitely agree with her that it is very dense stitching. And I also end up frogging a lot with this one. But I do want to finish it. I really enjoy it. I think it's a beautiful piece. So I started it on 12/31/2021. It was a New Year's Eve start, and yeah, it's not in my 23 and 23, but I do want to finish it someday. Okay, there was a little interruption from my daughter, so let's get back to it. She's staring at me from the window of my office. Okay, so that was all of my, I started that on 12/31/2020. I have the wrong date in here. I'm gonna have to fix that. So that was the end of 2020, and then I went into the no new starts of 2021, and like I said, I made it to my birthday, and you did get one free start, and so I really just had my birthday start, and I didn't do anything else. Or no, maybe I did start a few more things that I finished since then, but I got out due to model stitching, so I started a few things after this, but this was my breaking point. And it is Royal Holiday by Mirabilia. This is the first Mirabilia I started, and I kind of bit off a lot with this one because she's huge. I'm stitching her on a half yard, but she's just so pretty. And she's very royal. So, like I said, this was a birthday start. So I started her September 5th, 2021. And here's where I'm at. I didn't stitch a ton on her in the last year. I started with her dress, and I made a couple mistakes, so it makes going back to her dress a little bit hard. I have like an extra stitch in here somewhere that I'm just kind of fudging. But it made me, I got bored with all the browns and golds and stuff, and so it made me not really want to work on her. So this year I went up and I stitched in the wreath that holds the candle instead, and I really enjoyed it. It made me love this piece again. I'm stitching her on a 32 count Belfast linen that I dyed. It's colorway Tree Fern, but again, it's not a color that we've put in the shop. I just dyed the two pieces that I did when I when I dyed for this, but I love this color and I am hoping to get it in the shop in a more permanent manner in 2022, but it's also a very intense dye process. I put several layers of color on it, so we'll have to see how it goes, but I really love it on with that Mirabilia. I think that it sets it off really nicely. So okay, the next piece I have is Miss Christmas Eve. I started this on Christmas Eve 2021 with Sarah from Memphis, Sarah E. And I have this slated for a finish in 2022 because if you haven't seen Bella Filipina's new Christmas lady, fancy lady, Sarah and I really want to start that too, but we made a pact that we would finish Miss Christmas Eve first. So here's where I'm at. The top, her top half is completely finished except for beading. I may have a little bit of back stitching to do too on her face. Looks like I do. So my plan is that I'm going to divide her dress into 12 sections. No, I'm sorry, probably 10 sections. And I'm going to try to finish one section a month. And then the last 2 months would be for beading and any back stitching that I hadn't done. And I really think I'm just going to divide it from top to bottom and figure out, you know, it gets wider as it goes down. So I kind of want an equal amount of stitching per month. So I'm going to figure out how to do that. But, yeah, that's the plan. I've seen several people do that on FlossTube this past year, and I thought it was a smart idea for this, so I can get it finished. And the goal is to have it finished by Christmas Eve so we can start the Bella Filipina on Christmas Eve. Okay, that was all my starts for 2021. The next project I started was Temperature Butterflies by Stitchin' Mommy. I started this on January 1st, 2022, because that's what year it is, not 2020. And I am almost done, but I still have the month of December to go. I'm stitching this 32 count. I had to stitch an extra little piece of fabric on it to hold in my key snap, but it is on 32 count mystery blue linen. I won in a giveaway, and I'm stitching 1/1 with the called for DMC, and as you can see, I just have the December butterfly left. It's my goal to, once I have my WIP parade finished and posting, I'm gonna work on this today and tomorrow until it's finished so I can start my 2022 temperature Quaker chart, also by Stitchin' Mommy. These middle butterflies, I feel like were super easy to stitch because it was a super miserable time to live through, because every day was just like 96, 97, 98. And so they pretty much all used the same color, like with 1 or 2 exceptions. So they went really fast, which allowed me to catch up pretty well. And so the butterflies are getting a little more tricky to stitch as I have more temperature ranges. But it kind of lies about how miserable it was to work through, because the heat index was like above 100, but since the actual high of the day was below 100, I didn't get to use my hottest color. And I also haven't gotten to use the coldest color yet, but we had some very cold days in December, as most of the country did, so I get to at least use the lowest color, because I think the lowest color is like 30 and below or 28 and below, and we got down to like 0. So I'm excited to stitch that, was not so excited to live it. My new year, new start for 2022 was the Vintage Black Sampler by Owl Forest Embroidery. I started this with Sam from Sammy Liz and got off to a roaring start and then promptly skidded and halted. The goal was to do 2,000 stitches a month on this so that it could be a 2022 finish. And I think I've got about 4,000 stitches in a total, maybe 5. But part of what takes so long is that we are not stitching this in black. We are making it very colorful. I am just using leftover fancy flosses from Model Stitches, but also from some boxes that I received last year. So it's not all Forbidden Fiber Co. floss. This fabric is actually from a Bestitch Me box. I think it's Haunted or something like that, from their Halloween box. This balloon and this Goodyear blimp are part of my pride and joy of this piece, because I really had to work hard to chart that. And then the clock is modeled after Big Ben, which Big Ben is not the clock it's just the bell, I think, if I remember right. So it's really the Houses of Parliament clock tower. The owl is from Winnie the Pooh. That's Willy Wonka. That's Mary Poppins. And I'm not really doing the vine after anything. I thought briefly about doing it after Little Shop of Horrors, but I haven't decided yet. Right now I'm just doing the vine, not the flowers. And then the house is blue from, it was a house that I used to pass when we lived in New Jersey on the way to work. And it was just this beautiful blue Victorian house. So that's why I did that. And then the cat at the top is Garfield. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's 28 count. I'm stitching 1 over 1. So it is, it's not slow stitching. I can do it okay. My focus vision is pretty good for my ripe old age. But it makes it really hard to rip out. So I've had to rip out a couple of things, and then I kind of lose my stitchy mojo when that happens. I have this slated in my 23 and 23, so I definitely plan to get some work done on it. I don't expect to finish it, but I at least get to work on it. And I'm excited to start up on that again. My next piece is Year in Stitches, and this is by Victoria's Sampler, and I was 100% enabled to start this by Stitchin' Mommy, and she's much closer to a finish than I am. I kind of gave out after February, which is kind of when everything gave out for me last year, and I picked my stitching mojo back up in the fall a little bit, but I really didn't pick this piece back up other than some arbitrary August things when I worked on the March house. And I think I have this in my 23 and 23. Now I'm getting confused if it was this one or Vintage Black Sampler. Either way, I would like to finish this year, but I'm not guessing that's going to happen. Here's where I'm at. I'm stitching it on a 32 count. I think this is Morning Mist. And again, I'm just using leftover fancy flosses. I'm trying to stick to the same colors square after square. I'm not being too, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not being too exclusive. Like I'll put in other colors if I feel like the pattern needs it. So this is one of their creative pieces where they just kind of, they chart it in color, but they don't give you any flosses and you kind of use your imagination. But I've been enjoying it because it's got some specialty stitches in it, and I've never really done very many of those. So it's kind of fun for me. I started that on, I didn't write it down, so I put it as a January 1st start. I don't think it was, but somewhere in that first week of January is when I started it. The next one I have to show you is Winter Montage by Janet Stever. I got this from Pain Free Crafts, and I did this, again, I was enabled by Stitchin' Mommy. I only got 2 of the 4 started. I did winter and spring, and then, as I keep saying, my stitchy mojo gave out. I did about 1,000 stitches on this on the day I started it, and that is all. And I do not have this slated. Oh, my little ring light up there is really bright, so you can't see it very well. But I don't have this slated in my 23 and 23. I don't know if I'm gonna work on it or the spring one at all. I'm definitely not gonna start the fall and summer ones this year, even though those ones are my favorite of the 4. But I definitely want to keep these and keep working on them. Like, I have no plans to UFO them. This is a 28 count. It's my first time stitching 2 over 1 tent stitch or half stitch. So that has been really fun. I have always avoided it because I felt like, well, it's not really cross stitch if you don't do a full cross. And so for these pieces, because I had planned to start so many of them in close succession, I figured I'd go for it, and I really enjoyed it. So I don't have any plans to start new full coverage this year. I might jump in on the Grand Library, but again, because I'm doing that 23 and 23, I really don't think I'll do it this year. I really want to see some progress on my other full coverage before I jump into another huge one, especially another book-based one, because I have Reader's Paradise and Once Upon a Fairy Tale already. But I think if I do that one, I'm going to do 28 count, 2 over 1 half cross. The next piece I have is the Spring Montage. Like I already said, I started this on March 19th, 2022. And same, it's the 2 over 1 half stitch on 28 count. And I got just under 1,000 stitches done. So there's that. Nothing too exciting on these yet because it's just background. The exciting parts comes more in some of the other corners of the piece. So The next piece I started was the Jackrabbit by Cottage Garden Samplings, and this is the third in their Year in the Woods series. And I had really wanted to stitch each of these each month as they came out, but as you can see, I got through the Jackrabbit and then I quit. I started it on March 26th, 2022, and I'm probably about halfway done. And there's where it's at. I'm stitching this on 32 count Belfast that I dyed in the colorway Woodland. I dyed it specifically for this piece, and I'm doing a 1/4 yard because I'm going to do all 3 of the spring pieces on the same piece of fabric. And then my goal is, once I get them all stitched, to you know, frame them by season and hang them. I have a spot in my bedroom I want to hang them at. This is in my 23 and 23, but once I finish it, I had planned to keep going in the series. I'm not really sure if I'm going to do that yet. If I do, it might be later in the year. I might keep that spot open for something else, some family, some of my full coverage pieces for my kids maybe. The next piece I have is Sir Thomas. We call him Sir Thomas of Glendon Place. It's a Sal that Sarah from Memphis, Sarah E, started with, and I jumped in on. It's by Glendon Place. I started it on, let's see, April 21st, 2022. I'm using all of the called for everything. So this is on a 28 count China Pearl Jobelin by Witchelt. And I'm using the called for Sullivan's and Rainbow Gallery flosses and everything. And let's see, he goes this way. Let me fix him a little bit. And that's as far as I got. I don't have any plans to work on him this year. It's not that I don't want to work on him. He's just not slotted in. Maybe in the autumn, if I've got some open slots in my 23 and 23, I can put him in and work on him throughout the fall. The next piece I have is BZ Spring by Cottage Garden Samplings. I started this with Zan of Crazy Band Lady Stitches for her birthday. It was Zan's B-E-E Day Sal. And I had meant to start it and finish it in May, and I got really close, but work got busy, model stitching, etc., all the usual excuses. And so this is going to be my second finish of 2023 after I finish Temperature Butterflies. All I have left is this sunflower here and the stem, and that's it. It's done. I did mess up. I took this to 901 Stitchers meetup at Stitchers Inc. And I don't know if you can tell the difference between the inside of that sunflower and the inside of this sunflower. And I'm trying to decide if it bugs me enough to rip it out. And I go back and forth. And I think right now I'm of the mindset that I'm going to keep it so I can just keep stitching and get it done. And now that I'm looking at it in the screen, I actually kind of like it. So I think we're on team keep for now. But by the time I get back to it, I might be on team frog. So I don't know. I have got a couple days to figure it out. This is on a 36 count. I never remember the name of it. It's by Fox and Rabbit. I can't remember the name of it. I'll try to put it under the screen because it's a really pretty fabric and it's big enough that I think once I finish it, I can probably fit 4 more from this series, or 3 more on this 1/4 yard from this series. I think that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll cut them up and finish them, or, you know, however I do it. But again, I don't plan to start any more of those this year. I want to pull in some of my other WIPs once that's done. The next piece I started is the Moons of 2022. I bought this at Market from Kathy Barrick. She is so nice. I had so much fun chatting with her just for a few minutes while I had some time. And I started this on June 13th, 2022, and I am stitching this on full moons. I started it in June and I skipped 1 month. I don't remember which month. And then I never really got back to it. I think I skipped November and December. So there's where I'm at. I did put the moon names of 2022, except I changed out the Hunter's moon, I think, because she had it charted as something else. But everywhere all over the news was calling it the Hunter's moon. So I was able to use her 2023 chart and put that in there. And the only thing I don't know is I don't know if I'm going to put 2022 up in there. I might just space it out and say the moons. I'm not really sure yet because obviously I didn't finish it in 2022. I'm likely not going to finish it in 2023, although it is on my 23 and 23 album, so I can work on it. But I want to keep working on it on the full moons, so that's this weekend. So I'm going to put 3 days into it, I think, and see if I can get those, at least the chart finished out, and then go and work on the border some more. I'm using a 32 count even weave from back when I started learning how to dye fabric. I couldn't repeat it if I wanted to. I tried, and the formula I wrote down was completely wrong. It made blue dye instead of tan cream dye. So I don't know what I did, but and I'm using the called for NPI silks. I kind of treated myself for my birthday. No, it wasn't my birthday. I don't know. I think I was just in a funk and I wanted to treat myself. So I bought the NPI silks. However, the model is stitched 1/2 on 40 count. And so that's how I bought the silks. And I know I'm going to run out. And I don't know if NPIs have dye lot issues. So before I start any of this dark blue up here, I think I'm going to buy some more and see how that goes. The next piece I have is Kringles. And I started this with Sarah from Memphis Sarah E. It was our Christmas in July start. So I started it July 1st, 2022. And I only worked on it for those 2 days. So I have a teeny tiny little start right in the middle. And that's where it is. Oof, let me try to show it here. The light is starting to glare because there's a window over there, but yeah, I just did the little clock tower in the middle. I am using 36 count granite by Forbidden Fabric Co. I feel like this fabric was made for Christmas pieces. I believe I'm stitching it 2/2. Yes, this is 2/2 using, there's some called for DMCs and there's some called for fancy floss, and I'm converting the fancy floss to Forbidden Fabric Co. because that's what I have. So why not use it? The next piece I have is, oh, no, yeah, this is right. Old English Walled Garden, and I do not have a printout of what this is going to look like, so I'll put a picture up here. This is by Chatelaine, and it doesn't look like much, but this was some serious stitching. There are lots of partial stitches in there, and I don't think I did the partial stitches right. I think I was supposed to do some 3/4 stitches versus quarter stitches, but I didn't know any better. This is my first Chatelaine, but I think the back stitching will take care of it all, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm using all of the called for fancy flosses. There's a million of them. And this is a 28 count Lugana in the Forbidden Fabric Co. colorway Waterfall. It's a very watery blue-green. It's much more modeled on Ada and linen, but the Lugana makes it more like a watercolor, and I just think it's so pretty. So there's that. I'm stitching that with using the hashtag Chatelaine Wednesday, and I can't remember who started it, but if you go watch one of Sarah's videos, she knows, she's friends with the people who started it. There's 2 women who started the hashtag, and she can tell you who they are. The next piece I started was Dark Queen of the Earth, and I did not do Dark Queen of the Sea. I saw everyone starting it, but I didn't really know what it was. But once I saw it finished, I knew I had to get in on Dark Queen of the Earth. So again, I don't have a printout, so I will just post a picture in the corner. This is parts 1, 2, and 3, and the very beginning right there of part 4. Part 5 was just released yesterday, and basically part 4 and part 5 are all along the bottom, and just earth and flora is the word I was looking for, I think. It's a lot of stitching. I would love to say I'm going to catch up in January, but chances are slim to none because part 4 alone is like 3,800 stitches. And I haven't loaded part 5 into Pattern Keeper yet, so I don't know how many stitches that is, but I'm just going to keep going and have fun with it because it's a really fun stitch. The next piece I have is Around the World in 80 Days by RATM. And I started this with Sarah from Memphis Sarah E. It was a belated birthday start on September 25th, 2022, because I was actually out of town on my birthday this year. And Sarah saw this at Market and fell in love with it. And I said I would start it with her. We stayed up half the night, one night at Market, and converted all of the DMC into Forbidden Fabric Co. floss. And so we are doing that. I think I have one more color that I need to dye for, it's like a gray that I just didn't quite have the right color for, but I had enough to start. And I am stitching it 1/1 on 25 count Lugana, and this is in the colorway Lullaby. So it's just, it looks like a teeny tiny start, but there are actually quite a few number of stitches in there. And yeah, there's my start. Like I said, I think I said that was September 25th, 2022. I started a lot more projects in 2022 than I realized. And I think I was talking to my mom about this earlier as I was ironing everything and realized how many WIPs I have. I think I'm up to 48 now. And I have an entire, my spreadsheet, I have an entire page. These are just my 2022 starts. I think my problem is that I did a lot of model stitching at the beginning of the year. And so as I finished one, I was like, oh, I just finished a project. I could start another. But I hadn't really finished a project. I mean, I had, but it wasn't like from my WIP pile. It was one that I had just started and finished. So I think I got myself into trouble. And then there was NYE 12x12, and that was a whole other can of worms that I had no business doing, but I did anyway, and it was so much fun. Deck the Halls. This is by Ruthie Taylor. I bought it from Crow's Feet Stitching, and I don't know if those are one and the same or if Crow's Feet Stitching just recharted in an antique sampler. I don't really know. I saw a sale and I jumped on board because that's how we go. The sale started on December 1st, 2022, and I think I started it along with them. I was out of town, so I think I just stitched on it a little bit in my hotel room. I didn't get very far because when I came home, I had to model stitch. I jumped into model stitching my Advent box, which was the Holiday Express, and I don't have it here to show you. I still want to do a WIP parade, but it might be like, not a WIP parade, a finish parade. But a lot of the things I finished this year were models, so they're all at work, and so I have to get those and bring them home so I can do that. But here's where I am. I am stitching this on a 36 count Edinburgh linen, or Edinburgh if you say it correctly. And I converted it into Forbidden Fiber Co flosses. I did it, Mel Rouvray, who's not on YouTube, but she does have Instagram. She's the one who I saw, she was converting it, and so I jumped in and did the rest of the conversion. And then I jumped on board the sale. So I'm stitching this 1/2. Yes, 1/2 on 36 count. I think Winter Sparrow. I don't know if I said that. My voice is getting tired. I need a drink. Hold up, hold please. Okay. We are now into New Year's Eve 12x12. I did 6 WIPs and 6 new starts. So I was team half and half, and I really shouldn't have done the new starts because I messed up and I don't know what I was thinking, but all of my new starts that I did on New Year's Eve 12x12, I plugged into my 23 and 23 board. I don't know why. I think I was thinking that if I started on New Year's Eve and then planned to not touch it all year, that would be kind of silly. So I took up a lot of the slots that I had originally planned for things like family pieces and whatnot. But luckily, most of what I started on New Year's Eve are smaller things. Ooh, I just shook the camera. Sorry about that. So I do think I can get them finished, and that's what I'm trying to work on with my rotation, is putting enough time in there to finish, especially the smaller ones, so I can put my kids' pieces back on rotation. So I think, honestly, I think that it was a mistake, but it might be a blessing in disguise because it might really help me focus on finishing the things that I put in the 23 and 23 rotation to finish. And so it will really help me finish it so I can work on those pieces that I had originally wanted to slate in there. So the first one I have, and these aren't in the order I started them in, I don't think, but this is The Day by Plum Street Samplers. I got this at Market in 2022 in March, and I have been wanting to start it ever since. I have watched all the people start it on Instagram and FlossTube, and so I finally decided just to go for it. And I am stitching it on a 40 count waterfall, 1/2, and I just got the teeniest, tiniest start down there on the brick house. I converted the fancy flosses into Forbidden Fiber Co, and then I'm going to use the called for DMC. The next start I had on New Year's Eve was Beautiful Things by Lindy Stitches. I purchased this from her aftermarket, and I put it in my shop with all the intents and purposes of starting it, and they flew off the shelf and I never got to start it. So I got this from her Etsy shop and I just downloaded it and I started it. And this is a 36 count Primrose by Forbidden Fiber Co. And I am converting the fancy flosses into my flosses. So there's my start. And I already love this stitch. I'm doing 2/2 36 count, and it's a little tighter than I would like, but it's not unbearable by any means. It's just, it's not hard to stitch at all. It's just a little bit tighter in looks than I would normally prefer. But I have some colors that when I converted them from the fancy flosses, I really didn't have anything that I loved to go in that spot. But I found some that I want to try holding together. I don't know how it's said in cross stitch. I can never remember, because in knitting we say you hold it double or you hold them together. So essentially I'm taking 2 colors and stitching with them 1 strand of each. So that's why I did 2/2. The next one I have is Memories of the Past by Hands Across the Sea Samplers. And I really had no business starting another huge sampler because, as I mentioned before, I have Consider the Lilies, I have And the Forest Grew, and I already was having a hard enough time deciding between the two, but I decided to throw this one in the mix because I purchased it the day it came out. I was looking forward to this. I saw it on Nicola's FlossTube and I wanted it. And so I bought it and I have been impatiently waiting to start it. So I'm stitching this on a Tumbleweed 40 count by Forbidden Fiber Co. And I am using the DMC conversion. Nicola charts most of her designs in a Versoix, which really just isn't in my budget, especially for a piece this large. And I tried to convert it into fancy floss. I spent a good 15 or 20 minutes going back and forth on these pinks and purples that make up the border. And I just really didn't like anything I had. So I decided to just do the DMC because, again, it's more budget friendly. And I do have most of a full set of DMC that I got when Joann's had a, their lowest price of the year sale last year. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I like the pink and purple. It doesn't look quite the same in DMC as the picture does on the model stitch. It's a little bit more blue than pink, but that suits me perfectly because I'm more of a blue person than a pink person. So I really like how the conversion came out. Okay. Mercy and Grace by Sweet Wing Studio. And I sang Susan's praises on my 12x12 video. I really can't say enough how sweet she is. And so she gave this to me at market after we had a chat, and I've just been wanting to stitch it ever since. And I actually kitted it up and I was gonna do a birthday start, but I ended up model stitching something instead. And so I knew that when I decided to do the 12x12 that this had to be one of my pieces. And it's really quick stitching so far. So I think I can get it finished pretty quickly, and I want to get it finished pretty quickly because the Christmas stuff up there is going to come out today and I need some stuff to put up there. So there's my start, just a few letters. Again, I converted this. Did I say again? I don't think I said it to start. I am stitching this. It's really blown out by that. I have a big picture window over there. I already said that there's a window there, but it just got really cloudy and foggy. And so the lighting in here completely changed because I have a ring light right there that's totally blinding me and it's totally blowing that out. But this is Lavender Fields fabric. It's a 36 count and I am stitching 1/2. And I converted the fancy flosses into Forbidden Fiber Co. I think all of it was fancy flosses except for 1 DMC. And so I'm just stitching it all in Forbidden Fiber Co. flosses. The next start I have, and we're almost done, A Parliament of Owls by Kathy Barrick. Again, I picked this up at market. Kathy Barrick is just so nice, and we had a fun chat. I think I said that already. You can tell I'm getting tired. So I started this. I went into detail about it in my 12x12 video, but I have a thing for the Parliament Houses of London, just memories. And so I saw this and I knew I had to stitch it. And yeah, I started it on New Year's Eve. It was one of my last starts, I think. So I am doing this on Forbidden Fiber Co. Granite 40 count, 1/2. And I had originally intended to do the DMC. I think it's charted in silk. And I had planned to do the DMC conversion, but when I went to start it, it was like 11:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve. And I couldn't find my $37.99, and that was the middle start. And I just happened to have the flosses left over from my Holiday Express model stitch. And there was Railroad Lantern, which is basically $37.99. And out of laziness, I grabbed it. And I don't know whether I'll convert it all. I will likely just use this one and use the DMC for the rest. But it was there, and I was tired, and I really wanted to get it started, mostly because I really wanted to start my Miss New Year's Eve fairy on New Year's Eve. So there we are. And it's deceptively small because it's 40 count 1/2. It doesn't look like a lot of stitches, but it really is. Last, number 48, Miss New Year's Fairy by Mirabilia. I am borrowing this chart from Sarah from Sarah E because they just started selling the charts separately, but for the most part you could only ever get these in kits, and they were very hard to find, and I could not find this. And I knew that after I finished my Easter fairy, which was a start and finish this year, I knew I wanted to start this on New Year's Eve. And so she kindly lent me her chart, and I kitted it up at Stitchers Inc. on when we had our 901 Stitchers meetup, and you can barely see it because of the lighting. This is a 32 count. It might be a 28 count. I don't know. It's a mystery linen. It's gray. And there's my start. It's right around 200 stitches because that's what I had to have to include it in WIP Warriors. And so this was my last. I stayed up till 1:15 making sure I had 200 stitches in this, because even though, like I said earlier, I shouldn't have done it because I slotted all these 6 in where I had other things that I wanted to do. This was my original planned New Year's Eve start. And so I wanted to make sure I got my 200 stitches in because I knew that I wanted to finish this. I have several other of these small Mirabilia fairies, and I'd like to try to stitch them along with the holidays. So like I have Valentine's Day, I have the Christmas one, and I have a couple others. I don't remember if I ended up with getting Thanksgiving or Halloween, but I do have several of them, and I really want to stitch them. They're really fast, fun stitches. So yeah, that is everything. We made it to the end. I did do a New Year, New Start today already. Yesterday, because yesterday was the first. Today is not the first. Today is the second. So I did do a New Year, New Start yesterday, but since normally I would have filmed this video on the first and I would not have had that start, I did not include it here. I can't remember if I did that last year or not, honestly, but that's kind of what I was feeling today. So we are an hour and 14 minutes in. I have a couple of drink breaks and interruptions to edit out, but if you made it this far, it's definitely over an hour, and I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see what 2023 brings. I have enjoyed watching everybody's WIP parades so far, and thankfully have not been enabled that much yet, especially because I'm really trying hard. I have 12 things for sure that I really want to finish this year. Like I said, 2 are right off the bat. But as always, I don't know how crazy work is going to get. I don't know how many model stitches I'm going to have to do. So I can only plan and hope and see how it rolls out. Yeah. If you have a WIP parade, if you are a FlossTuber and you've done your WIP parade, drop it in the comments below so I can see. I'd really like to watch to see what you're stitching on. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's. I hope that 2023 brings you all the best, and I hope that above all else you lead with love. Bye.